I'm Scott Ervin with Sutliff Cider Company with Paul, drinking a great Sutliff cider this afternoon.
He's being damn modest here. So Scott is like one of the pioneering cider guys in the Midwest. There's no question about that. So we'll drag him in a little further on that. I'm Paul Rash, and I'm with Wilson's Orchard, Fox Ridge Farm. So Scott, tell us. So you come out here to just south of Lisbon, right? I mean, we're not in like Nowheresville, but we're not far off that, right?
That's right.
And you come out here from California?
L.A.
L.A.? I mean, L.A.?
Moved out from L.A.
Yeah, came out. This is like a Beverly Hillbilly story. Like picked up their
it's
stuff
not
and
Beverly
moved. No,
Hillbillies.
it's the opposite. It's the opposite, right?
That's for sure. But yeah, we came out in 95 kind of thing is when we came out here. My wife and I moved out in the aerospace business out to Iowa.
So that brought you out here.
That brought us out here. And then I have roots actually over in Marshalltown. That's where I went to high school, is in Marshalltown. You ever been over there?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's kind of, so we knew about the area. We had friends in the area, so it was easy to come out. It was an easy trip to come out.
So what came first? You bought the land and then thought about doing something on the land, or you decided you wanted cider and you looked for land to do it?
So we were into beer. We're going to make beer. That's what everybody's doing, craft beer industry, right?
This is
95-ish.
95,
Is that what you're
okay.
thinking?
Yep.
Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Yep. We're going to grow beer. We're going to make our own ingredients. We're going to. This is going to be 30 acres of barley. We're going to malt the barley. We're going to grow hops. And so I had just gotten back from Germany in the Hallertau hop area, which are the pristine hops of Germany. We plant 36 plants of hops up here, thinking that's what we're going to do. So we're going to grow beer or make our own ingredients and brew the beer. So we started into that a little bit, getting the vines going, in 2 years of that. And the damn orchard north of the house, okay, so it's the funniest thing. So north of the house, these old farms out in Iowa all have, 1 or 2 acres of apples.
Farmstead orchards.
It's a farmstead orchard, right?
It made Iowa the 6th largest producer in the United States with almost no commercial apple production.
And it was just for family use, I think, right? It was their candy.
Little to sell on the side maybe, but yeah, it's mostly family use.
And apple pies, something to get the family through, and so the apple trees north of the house, we had maybe 20 or 30 of them there. And how many apple pies can you make, right? I mean, you could only make so many apple pies. And so mixed in with the beer, so now the apples are falling. We're not making apple pies or apple crisp. Let's start fermenting apple juice, right? Why can't we ferment that? So what do? You just pick up literature, right? You just read book after book after book about hard cider making, and there wasn't very many books back then, 95, right? It's fairly new, drink, and so we started fermenting the apples that were falling, and fell in love with the stuff. You have the 5-gallon bucket of the stuff, and you ferment it, and then you age it a little bit, and then you bottle it, and it was this dry. I mean, it was totally dry. There was no residual sugar at all to it, and we fell in love with it as being, just a real refreshing drink in the summertime in Iowa. Our kids, so our kids are, born, and we've got the blow-up swimming pools. We're drinking the hooch, as they call it. All my neighbors would call it the hooch. Hey, Scott, you got some of that hooch up there? So that's kind of what kicked it off a little bit.
So how'd you learn, just from reading, or how'd you learn how to make cider?
Well, so that was a big part of it, okay, is what is it, and so the thing about cider, it's all about your blend of apples, is what everybody, all the literature was saying, and that's what we were finding out, that no one apple variety can give you all the components that you need for a cider. So it's all about the different apple, the apple combinations, the apple blends, and so you start messing with the different apple blends. And so let me back up a little bit. So, you know, being over in Germany with the hops earlier in the 80s, you know, in between the college years, I was working at a winery in the Rheingau with the Riesling wines. And so I worked with the German Riesling winemakers and kind of learned what they were doing is fermenting it completely dry, and then they had the sweet reserve on the side. And so it was all about trying to figure out the, you know, how much sweet reserve you put back into the dry juice to make it a, you know, a drink that you want to be drinking.
So sweet reserve would be unfermented, either Riesling juice or in the case of Sutliff Cider, cider basically.
Yeah,
just pressed off the press, not fermented, added back to fully fermented dry cider.
Right. So that was kind of the technique that I started out with. You know, that was the only thing I knew. So the orchard north of the house, you know, got us started. You know, we fell in love with this dry apple cider. I mean, it was just incredible. And so then we're making the 5-gallon carboys. You know, and you got your different apple blends and which ones do you like, and you do your trials, you know, your yeast trials and your apple, your variety trials, and so as we started getting going on it, so another side story is my mom works out in Sonoma County with the wine business out there, and so back in the early 90s, when I'd go visit my mom, I would take my cider out there, and she would introduce me to the winemakers through all the, you know, all the contacts, and I'd say, hey, what do you think of this? Can we try this? And they go, I don't know anything about cider. You know, how can I advise you what to make in cider? You know, I'm a wine guy, and so, you know, that was kind of a side story. But then they would give you little tips. You know, so one of the guys says, well, if you're going to market this, you're going to have a little residual sugar. You can't really market it as this bone dry cider. Are you sure? I mean, are you sure we're going to need that? And he goes, yeah, you know, that's what the public likes, is just a little bit of back sweetening to it. And so, okay, so that's when we started working with the back sweetening. And so we just add just a little bit of residual sugar, this back sweetening of the cider, into the drier cider. And that's kind of what we established as our style that we liked, is this drier side of cider. And then the apple blends that we liked really were based on these Jonathan apples. And the Jonathan apples have that really high acid level. And so it was all about a high acid, dry combination, which is almost at the extremes of the spectrum kind of thing. Is that what you've been finding too? So that's kind of what we preferred. And we were making our own batches, and then, you know, we'd make a case at a time, and it was all about trying to get it into the bottle. You know, now how do you get cider, you know, carbonated cider into the bottle, and make it last? You know, that you can shelf stable. I mean, there's so many aspects of you know, after you know what kind of style that you want to get. You know, what do you do from there? You know, how do you scale up was the other big issue. How do you go from the carboy, where you're siphoning it into the bottle, into the neck, you know, to a batch of, you know, 20 gallons, you know, and it was just the scale up was pretty intensive. I mean, it was hard to scale up. You know, which pump do you buy? You know, what do you buy for tanks? You know, do the tanks have to hold pressure? You know, those kinds of things were really tough for us, and that's what the folks out in California were really able to help us with, is the ability to scale up. You know, this is what you want. You know, you want to, you know, and then, you know, this is how you do the bottling and things like that was really helpful. But it took us about 5 years before, when we knew what we wanted to make, before we could actually sell it at the market, at the grocery store. It took about 5 years to get that scale up kind of figured out for us.
And I just want to sort of commend Scott in some ways, but also sort of lay a little groundwork here. You got to understand, 1995, today's 2020, so that's 25 years ago. It doesn't seem like that long ago, but there wasn't shit for cider going on in the United States, not craft cider. And
Nothing.
I mean, we looked at making cider in our family business in 1993. And what was the big one? Woodchuck, right?
Yes.
And
yep.
it was not selling at all. People didn't like it. It was a bone dry English style cider.
Was it really?
Yeah, it was. The original Woodchuck was very dry and very tannic, and it didn't sell.
And
you know,
didn't
it was
sell.
like it just did not move. Even on the, East Coast, it just didn't move.
Yep.
But at that time, the craft beer thing's blowing up. But cider is still like, I mean, you were really a pioneer in this time at that time.
Yeah, there was nothing going on, and okay, so now what do? You're scaled up.
Yeah.
You're making it. You're getting it in the bottle. Okay, maybe we're breaking even, kind of thing, right? And okay, so now you got to get somebody to put it on their shelf. Now how do you sell the stuff? Oh man, you'd walk in.
It's not gonna be with your good looks.
Well,
No, I mean, we both suffer from this problem.
So, okay, yeah, so what do you do? So, as you're talking around to the craft brewing people, hey, what do you do? Show festivals, right? It was the beer festivals. It was, you got to get it out there. You got to get people tasting it. So that's what we concentrated on is trying to get people to taste it. And the more festivals we'd go to, we'd go to the wine festivals. At that time, we were actually licensed as a winery. So we started out as a native Iowa winery as opposed to a native Iowa brewery, which there's some distinctions in. But we started running with the wine crowd, and it was really hard to infiltrate the wine crowd because you'd be there sampling with the wines. Everybody just passed you by. Hey, we want to drink wine. We're not drinking cider. So the thing about cider too is it's a straddle between a beer and a wine. It's the alcohol content of a beer, that 6%.
Yep.
It's lightly carbonated like a beer, but it's made exactly like the wine. So you're right there in between both industries, and you're not a wine and you're not a beer.
Right. Made like a wine, sold like a beer.
And sold like a beer. And so just where do you navigate that to, So we weren't having much luck with the wine people. We were members of the Iowa Wine Trail for a while, getting part of that foot traffic coming in. And, it was pretty good, but most of the people were there to drink wine. And then we started running with the beer festivals. And that's where we started to get a stride going. The beer festivals, what we found our requirements were for a beer festival, it had to be good weather, had to be outside, and the sun had to be hot. And I'm telling you, the beer festivals took off. I mean, they were so exciting, to go to these beer festivals were those requirements. I mean, we're outside, and people would go wild over this stuff. I mean, it was really fun to be out there where it's an alternative to beer, but yet, not a beer. In that sunny weather, and that's the thing about cider is it really is a refreshing drink in the summertime. Right now when it's starting to get hot, I mean it's exciting to see people drinking the cider.
Yeah. And you went out to San Francisco, right? And you guys did pretty well, if I remember right, in like a slow food thing or something, or what was that?
Yeah. That's kind of an interesting story. So okay, so the cider, okay, what the hell was that? The La Quircha, okay, what was that? La Quircha, the prosciutto out of Des Moines, out south of Des Moines, was just getting his foothold too. And so people started putting us together with the, what is it? The story of applesauce and pork chop.
Yeah,
those
sure.
flavors going so good together. And so this one chef came together and he says, how about hard cider and prosciutto, pork prosciutto? and that combination is just to die for. You know, and so I think that chef was working around with the La Quercha, and then came across our drier cider. It was a combination to just, I mean, it was a combination to die for. And so, yeah, so the slow food, that chef, I think there was a competition. I wasn't too involved with it. I think they bought some product and paired it at one of the slow food festivals, I think is how that went. But yeah, it's a wonderful combination.
It is a wonderful pork and cider, hard or sweet cider is just a great combination. But hard cider goes very, very well with salty meat, and I mean, we spent the better part of a month in northern Spain this year, and just touring around their area. And man,
What, Bilbao?
yeah, Bilbao, yeah, in that part, but mostly over in the
Bilbao, I think.
yeah, Bilbao is in the there's two parts up there. One is the sort of Spanish part, and they make a certain cider, and then you go over by San Sebastian and Bilbao, and that is a different culture completely.
Yep.
And they do tapas over there.
Okay,
And
okay.
and in the other place they do a lot more full meals. But the combination of food and hard cider is just
When did you
incredible.
go over there? A couple years ago?
No, this year.
Oh, this year?
Or well, last year, yeah.
But the ciders are all over the world, right? There's these little pockets of the different styles of cider, which are so much fun to research, right?
Yeah.
And so we were into that too, right, in the early beginnings. You know, what kind of cider we want to make. You know, this is a very clear. I mean, there's no cloudiness to it, so we filter this cider, which is different from the Spanish cider or the French cider. And as we were researching it, you know, what is it? 80% of the cider is made in England. You know, the English ciders, but then there's a big following in France, Normandy, right? Have you been to Normandy, the Cider Trail?
No, I haven't.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh,
That's
I'm
next trip. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna have to set you up on that
Yeah.
one. My mom and I went to the Cider Trail in Normandy 10 years ago, I think. You know, and just did the research up in that area, and they're more known for their Calvados.
Yeah.
And so the cider is important, but it's a live thing. You know, it's you know, it's the antibodies. You know, whatever the yeast is still alive, and they bottle in the big bottle, and yeah. So the Cider Trail and the cider they distill into the Calvados,
Right.
and it's more of a Calvados kind of trail. And you know, the brandies of northern France I mean, they're wonderful.
Yeah. So if you go from there down, I remember now that if you go from there down straight south, you end up in San Sebastian, and that's the Basque region. That's that mountainous area there.
Yeah, that Basque region.
Yeah.
That's
And
the
so
word
they
you were
make a
looking for, right?
particular cider, and then over next to it, if you go west, is Asturias.
Okay.
So that's Asturias is the biggest wine or cider region in Spain.
So when we were there, it seemed like to be on the down. I mean,
Actually, it's not, though. I was
Really?
surprised. The thing is, demographics are kind of working against them, because that culture up there, they drink more cider than anywhere in the world. In
Really?
Asturias,
Really?
yeah. And you go to these villages there, and at lunchtime, so the way they drink it, of course, is they bottle it, and in the restaurants, then they pour it at great heights,
Yeah,
you know, and they
yep.
put it in your cup, and it sort of naturally carbonates. But they just pour you a little shot like that, and you got to down it like right now.
Yep,
And
yep,
they just
yep.
keep coming back, and every time between shots of this stuff, you're getting some kind of food. Yeah, it's unbelievable good.
And so we didn't research it quite as much as what you're talking about. I think we just went to the main cider house in Bilbao.
Okay.
You know, you probably hit that place too, where they got the barrel alongside the wall,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah,
squirting out of
squirting out,
you know.
yeah.
I go, what the hell is this a tourist thing, and then didn't push it much further than that. You know, it didn't seem like it was a very popular thing from there, but.
I think it's catching on now. I think it's actually started to catch a little fire with within the EU in general, and it's an experience, and experience sells, right?
Yep.
So back here in the U.S., and you're kind of starting to get some distribution. And
So okay, but when you're researching it, okay, so you think you know what you want to make, but is that really what you want to make? So you start researching it, right? What are the other people making? And so we had a small staff that was helping us press. We were pressing once a week and getting it in the bottle. And one of the guys was just really into it. And so every couple months he would travel, and he would buy everybody's cider, and he'd bring 2 cases of all sorts of different ciders, and we'd have these massive tastings, and that's a big part of it is figuring out what you want to make, because they've got the with the I don't want to say fireball, but the cinnamon side, people are making the wildest stuff, the barrel aged, do you want that barrel aged? Do you want it filtered, unfiltered? I mean, there was, quite a few different styles, to choose from. And so what we chose was this style, which is the high acid, low residual sugar, a little bit of barrel age on it, a little bit of barrel flavor on it, and crystal clear and a light combination and carbonation. And that's kind of what we settled with.
It's very distinctive. I think Sutliff Cider has, partly by virtue of the fact that you guys were starting early, but partly by the fact that you're just a very distinctive cider. I mean, that Sutliff Cider is very refreshing. It is a little bit on the tart side, which, really, from my experience, tartness, brings people back. You can get really tired of sweet.
Yeah.
But you grow into tart.
Yeah.
I think that.
Yeah, you don't drink one of Sutliff cider, do you?
Yeah, that's right. It's not advisable.
Another one of those.
Yeah, which is exactly what I'm thinking right now. Yeah,
that's what I'm thinking too.
Cheers. Yeah. Damn, good cider.
Cold. And hot, like I was talking about. Hot outside.
Nice sunny day. And we're here at Sutliff Cider, so tell us a little bit, where are we geographically?
Okay, so eastern Iowa, north of Iowa City, almost equidistant to Cedar Rapids, is where we are. South of Lisbon, it's Mount Vernon, Lisbon area. The farm was available, 33 acres, 35 acres, something like that, and we planted our orchard in 2000 with a mix of mostly Jonathan, but there's a mix of other apples to go along with that. Not the English cider apples. We don't have planted here, but we found that we really like those Jonathan apples the best. So so it's a pretty nice piece of property. I think it used to be an old cattle farm or something. When we moved in, there was some horses down in this area here, and old house, probably 150-year-old house, at least up there. The barn is we found when we were restoring it that there was a sign inside one of the stalls that the guy had painted 1892 on one of the stalls. So,
is that right?
So about that kind of date.
And what'd you do to the barn? So you did a lot of restoration in that, right?
So as we were getting started and growing a little bit, we were scaling up. We had been to thousands of festivals, so thousands of festivals, and we were kind of getting our foothold on the market. People were liking it, so we needed to do. Well, let me back up a little bit. What do you name your cider, right? Exactly. How do you come up with a name for your cider? So down in this area, along the Cedar River, there's a small little, what do you call those little towns?
Something like a
100 people,
Yeah.
or something. They're not incorporated. There's very few businesses down there. There's a business there's a village called Sutliff. So Sutliff is 5 miles to the south of us, and we're 2 miles from Lisbon. So we live on Sutliff Road. So the idea was, we kicked around, are we Sutliff Cider? So Sutliff Cider. And so that's kind of where we we kind of picked up a little bit of what we are. And I think Sutliff is a family name from out east. I think Sutliff is maybe some of the people that might have settled in this area from Pennsylvania.
I believe that to be
something.
true, because from the website I can tell you that there's a lot of people that will send us requests like, do you have any t-shirts that say Sutliff Cider on them or something?
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And a lot of people, have come in that, hey, I'm Sutliff. We need a Christmas present for Grandpa, kind of thing, and so we thought that kind of clicked, with the Sutliff Cider, and so we're right up the road. We're Sutliff Road, and so that's what we named the cider. So that's where that's coming from. And so as we started to grow a little bit, we needed a tasting room. People needed to come out to us and see what was going on. We started, having some foot traffic in, and we started just up in the shop with a tent, with a tasting room. We built a homemade bar, and we would taste cider on Saturdays and Sundays. And so we started looking at maybe buying a little piece of property down in Sutliff proper and having our tasting room down there, or moving production down there 5 miles south. And one of the farmers came by and he said, "What the hell are you thinking going down there? You got a beautiful place right here. Look at these old buildings you've got. I mean, can't you just come up with a tasting room right there?" And so that's kind of what triggered the thing is, oh, okay, yeah, we kind of do. And this big old barn, like I was talking about, like 1890s, had taken a little bit of wind damage this one year, maybe 2005, 2006. It's an old barn to begin with, but to compound it with a little wind damage, what do you do with it? Do you tear it down or fix it up, right? I mean,
That's the dilemma around here.
That's a
What do you do
dilemma.
with these old barns, yeah.
And so we said, oh, what was our budget to build the new tasting room? Let's build the tasting room in the old barn. And so that's what we did. So we started fixing it up in 2007, 8, 9-ish kind of thing. And when you know what it's like, right? It's just, who knows how to restore an old barn? I mean, we couldn't find anybody.
No, I mean, even the Amish, people are always like, yeah, just talk to the Amish. The Amish are like, yeah, just stay away from, tear it down. We don't do that stuff anymore.
And can you see the stone foundation from here? So it was the south wall and then the stone foundation, which was the hardest part. And so we talked to the people from Amana, the stone barn restorations of Iowa. Hey, can you, is there any help here that you can, and just pour a new foundation.
Yeah.
In that limestone foundation, it's so pretty, right?
Yeah, it is.
And so I found a guy from Lisbon, the mason from Lisbon. He goes, yeah, I'll fix that foundation for you. And he goes, but I just have the masonry guys. You're going to have another crew come up and support the barn when we tear that wall out. And so we had to jack the whole barn up, pull that wall out, clean all those stones, and then they built them back. So we had 3 guys doing the demolition, or the 3 contractors and 3 masons doing the job. And man, it was a big job just doing that one wall. And okay, today we've got the skid steers and we can place the big stones, and the problem that they really had with it are the big stones. I mean, those stones are unbelievable. And we're really not sure where they were quarried. There's a quarry a couple miles north of here that we think they came out of, but it's a little bit different, but you try to do the research, but these big stones, and we wondered how, the turn of the century, how they could have moved them. How do you bring them 2 miles south? How do you stack them on each other? And I guess they had their way with what, block and tackle or stuff. Do you know?
Well, I think in Egypt they use the extraterrestrials, so maybe that's it. I mean, yeah. Maybe they were just drinking enough cider that they just said heave ho.
What the hell?
What the hell?
A little tie-in between Sutliff Cider and the aliens.
Yeah, well, I gotta believe it, man. Having known you for a while, there's definitely a connection.
But you know what I'm saying is trying to do that one wall was pretty incredible, and then and so then we just went full in after we did that wall. That's going to be our new tasting room. Poured the place, and it's really been wonderful for us. 2008 is 8 or 9. We got the zoning and the health department to sign off, and everybody signed off, and so what we really enjoy now is the Sunday afternoons, the music events out at Sutliff Cider. 3 to 6, and it's a great band today that's playing, and you can probably see a few of the crowd or the folks coming out.
And it's easy. I mean, we're just talking about how everybody sort of can space themselves apart. They're outside. Go in, grab a drink, come back. You got a food truck here. Yeah, it's a great day. It's a great time. So. All right, so you talked a little bit before about sort of, honing that recipe, and you finally got it dialed in and stuff. And now you're thinking you're gonna take it out into the greater public, but that means bottling it, right? You gotta come up with some kind of packaging and logo.
Yep, okay, so we just started with our bottles. We were using 22-ounce beer bottles bombers, and they work good, no label, and they were good for the family. But to sit on the shelf, what do? We struggled the most about how to get it in the bottle, right? So our recipe was such that we tank fermented it, we filtered it, and then added a little bit of carbonation in the tank. So now we had to bottle it under pressure. And so that was the biggest part of it. And here was our original package that we've got. So we took this bottle, it's a brown bottle, kind of the beer kind of color to it, as opposed to a green European bottle, but it's more of a 750, like the Europeans were bottling in. And did you find in Spain and in France when you were there?
Almost all 750s.
Almost all 750s, right? Yeah. I mean, it was a 750. There's our logo, and then we wanted to keep track of the dates, so we had a date stamp. We bottled per season, so we marked our bottles by season, spring, summer, winter, fall, and so that's what we did. And to tell you the truth, as we got a little bit more automated, we found that this was really a great set us apart from some of the other ciders that were out there. As being more of a wine, as to give it kind of a style for more of a winey kind of drink as opposed to a beer.
And here again, I mean, if you look at the cider industry today, of course it's dominated by the Angry Orchards and the Ace ciders and stuff like that of the world, which are all in cans or small bottles. But the craft cider movement is being dominated by this kind of a play, and if you look at this bottle, I mean, if you feel it, it's heavy. This is a bottle that will withstand some carbonation. And it really is distinctive. So if you go to New York, the East Coast in particular, is just really, the craft cider business is almost all in these 700.
Are they really? Yeah. Are they really out east?
Yeah.
And we chose a crown cap, as being an easy, a cap to use, not as opposed to a cork. Yeah. And
but you put a crown over, or you put a whichever you call that. One of them.
Capsule.
A capsule.
Capsule over there.
Yeah. See, I knew it was UFO connections.
An alien connection.
So then you've got events here. You do weddings here. You do every Sunday during the summer, right? You got a band
and food and so we really made the tasting room as a go-to destination place, and we get people from all over the place. Like I was saying, the Pennsylvania guys. the Sutliff people are out here, and the road's busy on out here that's bringing people in, and yeah. So
And the
it's
bike, both just bicycle
motorbikes
and motorcycles. Yeah,
this
it's
is
incredible the traffic you get down through here.
and some of the neatest events that we've had out here are the ragbries.
Yeah.
We've had 2 ragbries, and that's the great bike race across Iowa. Man, is that ever fun! And you know, the first one was probably 6-8 years ago, and I mean it was wonderful.
Yeah.
I mean, and then so they actually made us a destination, or one of the marked spots on the second one around. So that was really fun to have us on the Ragbri map that the one year about 4 years ago. And the one thing about the bike traffic, okay, it's so funny. So if the bikers are coming from here, that's downhill, and then you start uphill, so they stop. So if you're coming down the hill, they don't stop.
They don't want to stop. Yeah.
I mean,
Fair enough.
yep, that's kind of funny.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, in addition to developing a reputation as a kind of unique and sort of trend-setting product, the Sutliff event thing has also acquired a certain notoriety. It seems like with
It has,
you know,
hasn't it?
with a certain crowd of people. They just love
Mostly
to come
from
out.
Iowa City. There's a lot of Iowa City, Cedar Rapids. And the thing that's fun is it's not a cliquey thing out here. And,
right.
and so we really tried to work hard to not make it a, you know, just one demographic, you know, just one group of friends that are always out here. And it's amazing to see all the new faces. Every single Sunday there's a new face that you see, and you know, it's fun to see that it's not, you know, cliquey. I mean, because that could be your downfall. Right
Yeah,
there, couldn't it?
exactly. Yep. So you've planted some new apple trees here. You've got old apple trees there, and you got the events going on. Everything is looking pretty good. Yeah.
So this orchard was planted as we started getting our stride. You know, we started you know, getting a following and getting at the sunny festivals. The shady festivals, still, it's amazing how you can't get people drinking cider. But this orchard was planted in 2000. You know, so that'd be about 20 years now. How much longer do you think that orchard would produce?
Well, it really depends on what rootstock they're on, but I would have said you have another 20 years by and large. You know, certainly 10, and no question about that. I mean, yeah.
Are those, you know, and I suppose it's all about how, you know, how much pruning you do and what style of pruning, I suppose. But
Yeah, pest management, pruning, yeah.
those orchards up in Michigan, how old are those? Some of those that
God,
say
I grew
Jack
up-
Brown or something.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, it's all changed a lot now. So, you know, I'd say when I was a kid in Michigan growing up, you know, it was not unusual to have 50, 60-year-old orchards that
Really?
you were still picking. I mean, mind you, you know, you're picking these damn things with a 30-foot ladder, you know,
Okay.
and the
Just
apples
huge
are like
trees.
this and, you know, not good quality. But that was the industry then. Now there's no tolerance for that. You know, every damn apple's got to be perfect, and you got to compete with Washington, where they've got a desert climate. And so pretty much, I can't think of, on the Ridge in Michigan, the biggest apple growing area is called the Ridge, Fruit Ridge. I can't think of a single old orchard like that that's still around. So
Really?
pretty much of the orchards now are going to be 20 years old, 25 years old tops, but they're all going to be planted. You know, when I grew up there, you know, you planted 30 feet between a tree every way, you know, so 30 by 30 we say. Now, a lot of orchards are planted 2 foot apart, 3 foot apart maybe, and the rows are maybe 12 foot apart. So you're 3 by 12 or 2.5 by 12, 2 by 12. You know, instead of, in other words, you know, 100 trees the acre, most guys up there are planting 1,200 to 1,500 trees the acre now.
Just in search of that perfect fruit.
Perfect fruit.
That's
it's
efficient to
labor efficient.
labor
That's
efficient.
another thing. I mean, labor is such a big part of the cost, and you're looking for early returns. You know, those big old trees, that you picked with 30-foot ladders, they probably took 10 years before they made a full crop. These young trees now, you plant them close, 2 years you've got a crop, 3 years you got starting on a full crop. So it's a big difference, you know, in our impatient economic times. We're not going to wait around 10 years. Yeah.
Paul, that's what I'm looking for.
That's the best idea. That's the
Hey,
best.
so let's talk a minute about pressing the fruit.
Yeah, sounds good.
So you probably are a lot more sophisticated than I was when I started on this. You know, so how do you press a fruit? And so I started with what the hell was that? You know, it was electric, but you know, it was a basket. You know.
Right. Yeah. With the hand crank and the what the hell were they called? They're made in Kansas City, right?
Natural. Nature's Way or
something like that. Yeah.
$400 or something, and you could get what, a gallon an hour, gallon of 15 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, we'd put our apple blend in there, and we would always blend our apples before we pressed it. How do you do it now?
We tend to press, well, because we pick into 20 bushel boxes, and so we dump those, and then you blend the juice, not the apples.
Blend the apples. Okay, so then we upgraded. You know, we found some guy up in Wisconsin that was selling a day orchard press.
Okay.
What do they call it? Rack and cloth.
Yep.
You know, overhead. You know, the conveyor would bring the apples up. You know, dump them in the grinder. The pulp would come down, and we'd build these layers. You know, ours
cheeses. They call
cheeses.
Them.
That's right. It was a 20-inch cheese.
Yeah.
You know, we'd stack them up, and we were getting pretty good. It was 100 gallons an hour. Does that sound about right?
I bet you did. Yeah.
With 3 people, you know, and as we were getting started, it was, you know, our bottleneck. Okay, you'll probably laugh at me at this, but our bottleneck was how to dump the box.
Oh.
How the hell do you dump a box?
So these are 20 bushel, so about 800-pound boxes, wooden boxes that are about essentially 4 by 4 by 2.5 foot tall.
Lift them by a forklift.
Yep.
And you know, we were so cheap, we didn't know how to dump the damn thing. You know, so we started by just doing it by hand, but you know, we finally got a box turner on the front of our forklift, and you know, we were able to.
So you can grab the box and then flip it over.
Yep, and then sort the apples. Right. It was you know, it was a big technical improvement when we got the box dumper. That's for sure. And then the bottler. You know, to be able to bottle those 750s was a big turn for us, and so.
So let me get this straight. You're working as a aeronomic engineer or aero something the goddamn engineer.
And I've kind of stuck with that.
Yeah, but you're doing that full time and doing this. I mean, that's got to be not a small amount of extra work.
So what brought us to the area was Rockwell Collins. I was working at Rockwell out in California, and you know, when we moved out here, then we were just doing this on the side, and you know, midlife crisis or whatever in the 40s, you know, looking to do something different, you know, hoping to kind of break away from the engineering kind of thing, or working for the man kind of thing, and then, you know, it always looks greener on the other side, right? You know, God, if you could work off the land and, you know, run your own business, and running your own business is hard. You know, it's you know, people are depending on you, and you know, it's a hard thing to run a business. And so, so I've stuck with the aerospace engineering, and then do this as well. Yeah.
But how did you manage it in the days when you're doing this? I mean, this is, maybe it's not 100% full-time job, but it ain't far from it. Plus you're working full-time.
And you have to get in it with both feet, right?
Yeah.
You can't just stand back and say, "Hey, I'm not buying that box dumper."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you need a box
despite
dumper,
what your significant other may think.
You know, if you need a box dumper, you need a box dumper. If you need a new tank, right? You
gotta have it.
Tank. If you need a bottler, and you just jump in with both feet, and make it work kind of thing. And the probably the biggest thing was restoring the barn and the tasting room, getting that going.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
and you've done a beautiful job. I mean, it's gorgeous. Yeah, you guys will get a chance to see inside. It's gorgeous.
yeah, and it's really fun, and our backup plan, hey, honey, what are we gonna do if nobody buys the cider? We're gonna move in it. We're gonna move in that thing. So we made a garage door. We got a kitchen. We got a bathroom. There's no shower in it, but that was our
That was the backup plan.
And you probably have backup plans too, right?
Yeah,
I would love to hear your backup.
leave the state.
I would love to hear your backup plan.
Get the hell out of Dodge.
Or let's get Sarah in on this.
Yeah, no, you don't want that. You
Could-
don't want
could
that.
we?
Yep. But yeah, so off you went. Everything is kind of cruising now, and
Got a good staff. I
yeah,
mean, Michelle in there.
You've
Let's
been.
get a
How
couple-
long has she been with you? For?
She's been here since the beginning.
And Johnny, he's been.
Yeah, he came a little bit after she did. But poor Michelle. I mean, since day one. Okay, so day one. Let me just put this part in too. So I kind of talked about starting making the original recipe in the 5-gallon carboys in probably 96. Okay, and starting to love the recipe, honing the recipe 97, 98, getting the advice from the winemakers out in California 98, 99, the scale up end of things, sanitation, all those aspects of making wine and making a product. And so 2000, 2001, 2002, we're ready to go. Okay, we're ready to go. And so are we ready, Pia? My wife, Pia. Yep. Let's go figure out what it takes to get a wine license. So 2001, 2002 in Iowa was a new era in alcohol in Iowa, where they started with these native Iowa wine licenses back in the, they were really kind of promoting these native Iowa wine places 20 years ago. And so I went to the local liquor store, Wilkie's Liquor, and I said, hey, what do you pay for your liquor license? Just trying to get the information. He says, or how do I sell the cider? He goes, you don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody you're making cider down there. I said, no, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about putting it on your shelf here at the liquor store and selling it. I paid $20,000 a year for my liquor license, is what he told me. So I come back to talk to my wife. Hey, Pia, okay, it looks like a liquor license is going to cost $20,000 a year. What's that mean for us? You rework your business plan, right? I mean, you rework your business plan. And can you imagine if your liquor license was $20,000
No.
a year? I mean, just for your liquor license? I mean, I don't know what the guy was thinking, but I go, okay, I can make this work. I can make this work with a liquor license like that. And so I hired an attorney in Cedar Rapids. I said, hey, can you help me navigate the federal and the state laws for the liquor license? And she goes, yeah, sure. And she puts the whole package together. The next week I go back in and talk to her. And she goes, okay, you're going to need to write a check for $25 for your state liquor license, and then you're good to go. I'm sitting here going, $25? I thought it was going to be $20,000. She goes, no, they have these new native Iowa wine licenses that are coming out, and that's what we're going to put you under. And and so it was beautiful after that. I mean, so we were able to get our license and get the cider on the shelf, and that's wonderful for the state. I mean, that whole concept of the native Iowa beers and wines is wonderful.
It's
for
transformed the craft beer industry.
Yeah, it's the main thing that allowed that to happen, don't you think?
And then by extension allows tourism to build, and I mean, there's so many side benefits. And I mean, for us, when we went to apply, the biggest question was, do you apply as a winery like you did?
Yep.
or as a brewery. And
Yeah.
in Iowa, unlike a lot of other states, it's not broken down by what you make the alcohol from. It's what the level of the ABV, the alcohol by volume rate is. And if it's 6.2% or below, you're considered a beer. It doesn't matter if you make it from sewage, you know, it's a beer, you know, and if you make it above 6.2%, it doesn't matter. It's a wine. So we applied for as a winery, you applied as a winery, and then eventually we both had to change it to
And we both switched it up,
to a
right?
brewery because, you know, 6.2% and above for cider, you can do it for sure, but if you're going with fresh pressed juice, you know, generally speaking, the apples that we pick around here are going to be in the 12 bricks range, which means you divide that by 2, it's going to be 6% alcohol. And
Yep,
then if you
yep.
back sweeten a little bit, it's going to bring the alcohol volume down. So, you know, I mean,
The high fives,
yeah,
you know, low
high
six
five,
kind
low
of thing?
sixes is where you're going to want to be. And unless you're going to do, you know, some kind of perverted fortified stuff or from concentrate and you know,
Yep,
who the
yep.
hell wants that? I mean, if you want that, you can get Angry Orchard. What the hell you want
Yeah,
that for?
and that really is what sets us out. I think is the fresh pressed juice. I mean,
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
makes a huge difference.
it makes a huge difference. I mean, when we were originally doing our trials with the different types of juices and the apple blends, I mean, why wouldn't you try the concentrates? And they just didn't even compete. They weren't anywhere close
there's
to
not,
the, in the.
But it's
in the
simple.
tasting.
It's super easy. I mean, pressing apples is dirty, noisy, time-consuming work. And so, you know, but you get what you pay for, I
Yep,
guess,
yep.
at the end of the
and
day.
the flavor just
The
and it
flavor, there's
shows,
just
doesn't it?
no comparison whatsoever. There can be no comparison on that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we both have elected not to even mess with the concentrate.
the concentrate
right?
stuff, just it's you know, I mean, if you want to be a super national mass consumer product, I can understand it, and there's nothing wrong with that, you know. But if you want to be a craft cider and you want to really go for the best quality possible, there can be no question about you're going to fresh press that juice.
Yes, you're going to fresh. How about that original woodchuck that we were talking about? Do you think that was a concentrate back
I
in the
think
early
so.
days?
I think so,
The-
to be
the,
honest. Because
Are they still around?
yeah, woodchuck is, but they've lost so much market share. You know, they used to be in a very small pond of cider. They were, I don't know what share they would have had, but I'm sure it was over 50% market share.
Yep.
And then Angry Orchard came out with a sweet, very approachable, highly carbonated product and set the world on fire. At one time, Angry Orchard was like 8 out of every 80% of all the cider sales in the United States were Angry Orchard. Now they've backed off a little bit, but it's still, you know, those sweet, made from concentrate ciders are the base of the cider industry. However, especially since the seltzer craze started, that market share for those mass market ciders has steadily declined,
Okay.
and craft cider has steadily increased. Very similar to what's happened with craft beer and sort of mainstay beer.
Yep,
You know,
yep.
so people are looking for better quality, and if you're looking for better quality, like you say, you start with the fruit, and then you determine the final quality by how you deal with that fruit, and fresh pressing is the only real
Yeah,
viable option.
And it shows.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
You know, it's exciting actually.
It is.
the difference that you see in them too. So.
Yeah, and so this is how I come to know this guy, right? So, yeah, we got together because of apples. He's looking for apples, and I had this variety called Burgundy.
No, it starts back before that.
Oh, was it?
I mean, you were just reaching this area, I think.
Oh, yeah, you're
You know,
right.
you
Yeah,
weren't
yeah,
anywhere-
yeah.
You
Oh,
weren't
I
even
forgot
living
about
here,
that.
and didn't who was the guy at the extension service?
Oh, Pat O'Malley?
Pat O'Malley.
Yeah.
Put together a little orchard tour or something that you were on.
I think you're right. Yeah, I forgot about that, but I forget a lot of shit. So yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was kind of fun, you know. And so he's out here, you know, asking me all these questions, you know, and who the hell is this guy, you know? And you know, we were just experimenting with trellising the apples and stuff back then. I mean, that was pretty new back then, wasn't it?
Yeah, I
And,
forgot that period. So yeah, we got to know each other. I mean, there were, you know, Iowa has a rich history of horticulture, but today it's all been washed away, right? I mean, it's been washed by corn and beans and you know, pork and eggs, basically, you know. So that's dominates the horticulture, the agriculture in Iowa today. But I've been one of our very dear customers has been supplying me with this bunch of proceedings of the Iowa Horticultural Society dating back to the 1890s, 1880s. I think the oldest one I have is 1882. And these old farmer types, you know, I mean, back in the day, you know, you're going to get on your damn horse and go to Des Moines for a 2-day meeting. That's a fairly major event, right? But they would give these very well-written essays and deliver them in speeches to a wide audience. And all these farmer guys, like you said, they got 2 acres, 3 acres, a half acre, 5 acres of apples, plums, pears, you know, peaches, and they're just exchanging notes about how this is. You know, Iowa used to have, of the 10 major horticultural crops, Iowa ranked in damn near every single one, you know, back in the day, because we grew strawberries, we grew pears, we grew apples, and it wasn't all just corn and beans, corn and beans, corn and beans, corn and beans, right? This land will support it, but it's not a consistent climate, so you don't get consistent results. And so the point I'm making is that when you got into it, I think you and I were both like, how do you make something from apples in this area, right? Because there ain't squat for orchards.
Yep, there is.
So our approach was, let's plant a lot of orchards. That's my background. Your approach was, let's make a great product from whatever apples we can get, right? Yeah, and you turned me on to, you know, the guy up in Strawberry Hill. What was his name? Dave Nading. Remember him?
Yeah, do you still deal with him?
No, I haven't for a while, but I mean, he was a great supplier of apples, and now there's other apple orchards sprouting up here, and you know, eventually we'll get back to some semblance of balance, hopefully.
And finding the fruit is a big deal. I mean, we used to drive, you know, to Des Moines to pick up 6 of those bins. You know, and like you said, up in Strawberry Point, you know, you guys down. Okay, so finish your story. Okay,
so I just remember. I mean, the clear memory I have is Scott coming down, and I had this variety called Burgundy. Burgundy is the guy that started the orchard that we have is called Chug Wilson, and he always claimed Burgundy was like a Jonathan, but was bigger, redder, and better.
And more juice.
And more juice, yeah. And they were big, and they're tart. They're really tart. You know, tarter even than a Jonathan, I think. And you really loved them, but I remember your son Zach was down, I don't know what he was, like 11 years old or something like that, and he's looking at these like, Dad, these all have bruises on them. You shouldn't pay that much for those apples. Which is, of course, all he needed to hear.
Those are the ones that we want, you know. Well, it's the acid that we were looking for. The tart and the tangy, and so, I think we've had a great relationship over the years.
Oh, it's been fantastic.
It's been really fun. And so I would say that first little orchard tour must have been, you know, if we planted this in 2000, we must have been planting that over there 2006. I bet.
Something.
Is that about when you...
Could have been, because we were living overseas and I was coming back. We were looking at properties in this area. And and so I was just like a magnet drawn to like a bug drawn to light, looking for anybody with any apples or anything, you know.
That are using apples.
Yeah, that are using apples and things like that.
What are they doing?
Yeah.
And so we had been in business.
So probably
for
right, 2005, 2006, somewhere in that range. Yeah.
You know, and getting a foothold, and it was fun. And it's still fun.
It is fun, most days. Yeah, most days it's real fun.
And it's nice to come out today too.
Thanks, it's a beautiful day. Thanks for having us. This is really fantastic. Well, let's finish these off. What do you say? Cheers.
Cheers to you.